The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Students from Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland have called for a nationwide march and are taking a firm stand. I want to discuss that along with all the things that we can do to help break us out of this vicious cycle. Also, let's briefly discuss the Mueller indictment of 14 Russian nationals, along with the extremes on both end reactions from people who dismiss it and those who believe that it's more than what it is. Black Panther smashes all expectations, and then a few of your voicemails. All of that coming up.
The people in the government who were voted into power are lying to us. And us kids seems to be the only ones who notice and are prepared to call BS. Companies trying to make caricatures of the teenagers nowadays, saying that all we are is self-involved and trend-obsessed, and they hush us into submissions when our message doesn't reach the ears of the nation. We are prepared to call BS. Politicians who sit in their gilded House and Senate seats funded by the NRA telling us nothing could have ever been done to prevent this. We call BS. They say that tougher gun laws do not decrease gun violence. We call BS. They say a good guy with a gun stops a bad guy with a gun. We call BS. They say guns are just tools like knives and are as dangerous as cars. We call BS. No, they say that no laws could have been able to prevent the hundreds of senseless tragedies that have occurred. We call BS. That us kids don't know what we're talking about, that we're too young to understand how the government works. We call BS.
Okay, I may be inordinately excited about the passion from Emma Gonzalez that we just heard. We call BS. I may be just a little too excited about it. But the reason I'm excited about it is because this next generation, they are on deck and they are not having it. They are the ones who are on the front line of all of these school shootings, and they're having to step out and step up because their lives depend on it. They are unique. It is sad. It is sad. It is depressing. It is hurtful. It is painful that they have to carry this responsibility. But we failed them. Our generation failed them in that we couldn't get it done. Some people didn't want to get it done, but then the rest of us, we're complicit in that we couldn't get it done. And now they're having to take up the charge against school shootings, against assault rifles. They are leading a revolution right underneath us, right in front of us. And it is an amazing thing. It's simultaneously such a sad thing that they're having to do this. 17 kids dead. 17 kids. And we're Republicans. Yes, this is a partisan issue. Let's just skip the pretense. Where Republicans are trying to make this go the way of every other school shooting so that they can protect the interests of the NRA, where they're trying to find ways of attacking these kids. They are finding out that this is not the same. I mean, I was lamenting last week over the fact that we're in a cycle, a vicious cycle, and it seems to never change. But something is uniquely different, and it is the voice and the voices of all of the people who survived the Stoneman Douglas shooting. They are able to speak their own minds when their parents are not able to, or they're able to be strong when their parents aren't strong. They're able to come out and challenge a system fearlessly. They grew up in a social media generation, and they are able to eloquently and efficiently destroy all of these narratives that would move the conversation past the need for gun reform now. What do I mean? Take a listen to this. Donald Trump on Twitter said, "Very sad that the FBI missed all of the many signals sent out by Florida school shooter. This is not acceptable. They are spending too much time trying to prove Russia collusion with the Trump campaign. There is no collusion. Get back to the basics and make us all proud." Well, nice move by Donald Trump. The FBI does have some responsibility in this, and the fact that they dropped the ball. I would argue that it's for another reason, but forget about what I'm going to argue. Listen to Ali Sheehy, and this is what she said on Twitter. She said, 17 of my classmates, she subtweeted President Donald Trump. She said, 17 of my classmates are gone. That's 17 futures, 17 children, and 17 friends stolen. But you're right. It always has to be about you. How silly of me to forget. Hashtag never again. She got 121,000 likes, 44,000 retweets. She's speaking directly to the president of the United States, who got 34,000 retweets and 133,000 likes. Those metrics matter in a very significant fashion when Twitter is the primary platform of this oafish clown that we call the president. Take a listen to Kyra on Twitter as @LongLiveKCX. She responded to the president this way. She said, my friends were brutally murdered, and you have the nerve to make this about Russia? I cannot believe this. Very simple, very to the point. And you know what? 130,000 likes, 32,000 retweets. These children on this issue have as much reach and as much power as the president of the United States. And you know what? You're goddamn right.
People are saying that it's not time to talk about gun control, and we can respect that. Here's a time. March 24th, in every single city, we are going to be marching together as students begging for our lives. This isn't about the GOP. This isn't about the Democrats. This is about the adults. We feel neglected, and at this point, you're either with us or against us.
Again, I think I am so hype about these kids and what they are doing. I'm literally, if you could have heard me screaming when I heard this clip the first time, oh my goodness, you're either with us or you are against us. That is Cameron Caskey. He's 11th grader at Stoneman Douglas. He survived the shooting, and they are calling for March 24th. They're calling for the March for Our Lives. And I think every single one of us, every YouTuber, every podcaster, every progressive, every socialist, every single one of us need to get behind this and support this, because, oh my God, every single one of us of us personally, of our families, our friends, we can and most likely will be touched by this type of tragedy if we don't do something right now. Okay, now here's the part I wanted to talk about. Remember, I was saying that, we got to do something to get out of this cycle. Now, these kids are doing their part. This is how we could do our part. Number one, you, the listener, do not get tired of this story. Do not pick up. If you feel yourself, if you get the inclination of saying, oh, Ben is talking about this again, the news is talking about this again, then this is how you help us. Do not allow yourself to get tired of this story. We have to keep this as fresh and in front of us as much as humanly possible, as fresh as the Russia story. All right. That's number one. Number two, myself, Rebecca, the entire progressive army, people who do podcasts, people who do media, journalists on the mainstream, we absolutely can't get tired of the story, and we must continue to bring this to the front no matter what. This has to become our mission, our focal point. We have to contribute here. If we keep the fire burning, these kids will do the rest. I'm telling you, these kids will do the rest. And number three, all of us, every single one of us support this march. Every single one of us support this march. Don't let these kids get out there and march by themselves by any means at all whatsoever. We will not fail them in this regard. We can organize. Get out there, March 24th. Get your kids, get your coworkers, get your family, get your mama, get your cousin, get everybody involved in this march on March 24th.
You are responsible. 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 You are responsible.
Those again are students from Stoneman Douglas High School at a rally right outside of the school near the highway there, and they're holding up signs saying Marco Rubio, he has NRA blood money, pictures of Marco Rubio. They're asking, do we have to pay with our lives? They're calling, they are literally taking on the NRA head on. And there's nothing the NRA can do about it. You know why? Because these are the children who suffered the most. They lost their friends. And it's so unfortunate that they have to take that type of position. They have to take this type of a stand. It's sad that they have to go through this. But if who better to take on an organization as vicious as the NRA, as malicious, as indifferent to the number of deaths that occur? And they believe the solution to mass shootings is for teachers to have guns. Teachers who are already stressed, teachers who are already underpaid, teachers who probably can't afford to pay their rent most of the time. They expect them to purchase guns and get training and carry guns, and to be able to take decisive action in the midst of students running around in chaos and to take out the shooter. This is how malicious the NRA is, and these kids are taking them head on. We need to lift these kids up and make sure that they get everything accomplished that they want to get accomplished. They want to ban assault rifles. That's their goal. Let's make that happen. And the way we can help make that happen, March 24th, anywhere in this country, wherever you are, take part in a march for our lives. Organize. If there's no one organizing in your city, you be the person to organize. If anyone in Atlanta knows who's organizing, I'll do some research today. Get at me. I will not only promote it, I will help organize it. I will be there to support it. And if no one is organizing it, then me and my team, we're going to organize it, and we're going to make sure that the March for Our Lives happens in Atlanta. Make sure it happens in your city. No one sits down on this. Everyone participates.
The U.S. indictment says Putin's so-called chef also handles the Kremlin's under-the-table operations, including a disinformation factory, the Internet Research Agency that fed social media during the campaign.
Outsourcing became Kremlin's tactics many years ago for conducting sensitive operations because it provides you plausible deniability.
Twitter, Google, and Facebook all say the disinformation campaign the indictment linked to Prigozhin was a source of divisive postings about race, gun rights, and religion, often through stolen identity.
That's a special report by Richard Engel on NBC News about Yevgeny Prigozhin, the Russian chef who allegedly is the direct connection between the Kremlin and the Internet Research Agency, which, according to the indictments handed down on Friday by Special Counsel Bob Mueller, is the agency that ran the disinformation campaign, ran competing ads to fuel dissent amongst the American electorate, ran anti-Hillary Clinton ads, ran pro-Donald Trump ads, ran pro-Jill Stein ads, etc., etc. These are the allegations. Now, these are the allegations that are outlined in the indictment. I, of course, am going to come from a different angle, one that you may be familiar with for me, but one that is not represented in the media right now. Number one, let's all just stop and pause for a minute and agree that this happened. Okay. This is what major powers do. The United States does it. I'm going to play a clip in a minute that's really funny in regards to that. The United States does it. Russia does it. Germany, France, UK, everyone does it. But does that mean that we just roll over and allow Russia to do it to the United States without it going unanswered? No, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. And I mention that because there are some people in circles on the internet. So I've seen the messages. I've seen the comments. I've seen the diatribes. People who act as though this did not happen whatsoever. And then as soon as you expose the fact that it did happen, they're like, oh, well, it doesn't matter that it happened. Right. And that's a reaction, right? They're being extremely reactionary because they don't want the political capital that can be gained to be given to the Democrats because they know the Democrats are going to misuse it and mishandle it. I think that's the wrong approach. I think that you're further fueling the Democratic Party's narrative when you deny the existence of this influence campaign. I mean, we do it here in the United States on local elections. Right? And this is something that we have the right to do to each other until further notice. But there are plenty of campaigns, operations where they hire trolls and trolls create false narratives about a particular candidate. We do that internally. Fine. Do we allow Russians to do it? It doesn't seem like that's something that we're going to allow. No, it's an easy answer. It's no, people. Now, on the flip side, there are those Democratic leaning people, Democratic Party officials and sundry, trolls, Democratic trolls on the internet who have taken this narrative to suggest that either one, because the Russians ran a campaign to support Jill Stein, that there in some way should be no third parties. No, that's not how this works either. I mean, you have these ridiculous extremes, and it seems like the people with the biggest platforms are existing in these extremes without giving us the opportunity for something that's, for people who consider themselves to be centrist and moderate. We can't even have a reasonable conversation about this without people going to the extremes on either end of the conversation, right? So you have people who just completely dismiss that this is even a thing. And I'm like, really, at this point, you're going to dismiss that it's a thing? And then you have people on the other side of the spectrum who said this was everything, that the entire election was swung because of the action of these 13 Russians. Well, that's not actually in the indictment. There's no actual observable. I mean, go to natesilver.com, not Nate Silver, but 538.com, their blog there. They're discussing the effects, and they come to the conclusion that we just don't know how big of an impact this had. I would argue that it didn't have a large impact, not as much as some key mistakes that the Clinton campaign made. I don't think that this swung the election. Did you see the ads? Did you see the actual material that was produced? The videos that were produced? They were laughable. They were comical. And the only people who were going to be influenced by those ads and those videos and those campaigns were, well, I don't want to attack those people individually, but they were poorly done and nothing on a scale. I mean, there are videos on YouTube that have like 10 views. But the point is this. Did it happen? Yes. That's if you're still on the boat where you think that it did not happen at all. I don't know what to tell you. You're on some other stuff. You're lost. If you think that it had the power to change the entire election, you're just as lost. Okay. Can we let, and then finally, let's just allow the investigation to continue. I can tell it's almost coming to an end. It should all be over pretty soon, and we can find out the extent of the Russian involvement, and we can also find out the possibility of Donald Trump's obstruction of justice, if there's a provable case, etc., etc., etc. But the point is this. I've already said the point. I'm tired of talking about the story. Next story.
You're telling me that the king of a third world country runs around in a bulletproof catsuit? Why don't you ask him yourself? Because he's right outside. Bingo.
Okay, I hope by now that you've seen Black Panther. But just in case you haven't, I will not give any. I'll do my best not to give any spoilers. But let's start with Black Panther is smashing on the box office, 218 million opening weekend. And that's just here in the United States. I believe it's on track for 360 some odd million globally, internationally. I mean, wow. Congratulations to the entire staff, team, the director, the crew, the cast and crew. That's what I'm looking for. Congratulations to all of you. It was a fabulous movie. It was so good. Ben Shapiro, who me and Rebecca had an ether last weekend, check out our video that has 2.2 million views, crushing Ben Shapiro. It was so good. Ben Shapiro had to come out and say it was a very good movie. It just had some really radical themes in it. And so anyway, go see the movie. It's great. One particular criticism that I want to address is the criticism that's coming from black people, some black people, and it's really being like, there's some white progressives who love this critique. They have a problem with two things. Ajamu Baraka, the vice presidential candidate for the Green Party, along with a couple other people. There's an article in the Boston Review. I linked to it in my article that discusses what I think is the most important moment in the movie. I won't give it to you on here because I'm sure some of you have not seen it yet. But the criticism is about the role of the CIA in the movie. Number one. And then the second criticism is about the representation of black radicalism and the black liberation movement as depicted by, as they believed was depicted by Michael B. Jordan's character, Killmonger. So the CIA's role in the movie, I thought was, well, first of all, let's start here. Every single one of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, there's been 17 so far. Every single one of them, the CIA/SHIELD play a integral role in the entire plot. And in most of those movies, they're venerated, they're lifted up. And now people have a problem with the fact that there is a single CIA agent who is a friend of T'Challa in the movie. Now, most of these people, I guarantee you, have not seen Captain America Civil War, in which Agent Ross was introduced and had a relationship with T'Challa there, because T'Challa was in the United States tearing stuff up, trying to get revenge for his father. So Agent Ross is not new to this Marvel Cinematic Universe, introduced in Black Panther as just a throwaway character. He is the character that is bringing continuity to the film, right? Keeping it in the context of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That being said, everybody wanted this movie to be a statement against the CIA's role in the subversion of democratic elected leaders in Africa, the other leaders in Africa, the killing of leaders in Africa, which the CIA absolutely is responsible for. But that's not what this movie was. This movie was not about black people versus the world. This movie was about black people answering questions for black people and internal conflicts inside the black community. That's one thing I think people are missing. This movie was less about black getting revenge on white people for colonialism. This movie was about the internal struggle that exists inside of the black community. And in that regard, the CIA is nothing but they have no role in that. They may have a role in some of the problems that the black, hang on, let me rephrase that. They absolutely have a role in some of the problems that exist in the black community, right? But in this movie, it was about Wakanda. It was about the internal power struggle there in Wakanda. There's like one scene that doesn't take place in Wakanda, and the CIA agent who happened to be there, he was a token character. He was a throwaway character. And so everyone who wants this to be some kind of referendum on the CIA, like, go create your own movie, right? Go create your own movie and then ask the same thing. Ask the same thing of all the other 17 Marvel Cinematic Universe movies that actually lift up the CIA and SHIELD, which is rather fascistic. They lift them up and as something to be revered. In this movie, in the Black Panther, Agent Ross barely survived without the help of the 16-year-old Shuri. So that's number one. The second critique that a lot of people have is the representation that they felt that Michael B. Jordan was of black radicalism and the black liberation movement. And I argue that he did not represent the black radical movement whatsoever. Right? His character, as in the comics, is a vicious, psychotic murderer, because those type of people do exist, right? His motivation was his personal ambition to make the world suffer the way that he suffered. Okay, so I'll stop there and say, if you feel like that type of discussion is a spoiler, I don't feel like that type of discussion is a spoiler, but if you do, cut this off. I'm going to give you a couple seconds. 3, 2, 1. I don't think motivations and portions of the plot are spoilers. I don't consider that, but then someone told me last week they do consider that as a spoiler. So I wanted to give you time to leave. His motivation was to make the world suffer the way that he suffered. His motivation wasn't black liberation. His motivation was world domination using the technology of Wakanda. His motivation was not to be the rightful heir to the throne and properly lead Wakanda. He was willing to see Wakanda burn. So really think about that. Like, he was not as much as you wanted him to be the representation of black liberation and to be the representation of black radicalism, he was a representation of his own personal ambition and his desire to make the world burn and suffer the way that he felt he suffered. That's it. So all of these criticisms of, two people call the movie evil. One of them happens to be my cousin, not by blood, Leslie Lee III of, Struggle Podcast. I think that's called the Struggle Podcast. I'm sorry if I got the name wrong. But he is, he grew up, our families lived next to each other for like, I don't know, 90 years, a couple of generations right across the street. So I call him a cousin from a real small town in Louisiana. But he called the movie evil. Cuz really, I'm gonna come to your podcast. I'm coming to your podcast. We're gonna talk about this. Like, seriously, it wasn't black radicalism. That was the sociopathic desires of a madman to make the world burn. That's what he wanted. There was no Black Panther in the sense of the Black Panther Party for self-defense. That type of black radicalism was not represented in that movie whatsoever. Wakanda didn't represent it either. That's the other side of the spectrum. And this is how much the movie was about the internal struggle in the black community, particularly with Wakanda. See, what, Michael B. Jordan's character was nothing more than a foil. He was nothing more than a device to push the protagonist into his destiny, because the protagonist and the people, T'Challa and the people of Wakanda, they were the problem. They were the problem. Now, okay, this is legitimately some spoilers, so I'll give you a couple more seconds to leave. Wakanda was the problem because they were an isolationist, xenophobic ethno-state. And they wanted to maintain that, if no other reason, for their own safety. I get it, but that still meant that they neglected and abandoned millions and literally billions of people around the world. They were the problem. The movie was really about how you get elites, in this case, black elites, to be their brother's keeper. It wasn't about the black revolutionary movement as a statement of a continuation of the 60s radicalism that is enshrined in everyone's minds. It had nothing to do with that. Wakandans were the bourgeoisie. The Wakandans were the elite of the elite. And Michael B. Jordan's character, his villainous character, was nothing more than a tool to push T'Challa into his true destiny. So this is where I think all the criticisms that are mounting fall short. You're trying to see something in the movie that the director was not trying to convey. You're trying to put your desire for black radicalism, as you define it, from our dreams of the 60s revolution and the 70s Black Panther Party for self-defense. You're trying to imbue that. You're trying to make that what this movie was about, but it was not about that whatsoever. And so that's it. But the movie is fabulous. I'm probably going to do at least 3 more podcasts on the movie by itself. I'm going to do one with Terrell Starr. He reached out to me about my article and wanted to argue with me about the article, particularly where I said that black people are complicit with this system. He wants to argue about that. I would love to argue with him. I'm going to go and take on my cousin, Leslie. I'm coming. Set it up, or you can come on my show. As far as I'm concerned, we could just hash it out. I'm going to do another show. I'm going to do a show with Noah Changa. She wants to chop it up. So there's going to be a lot of Black Panther talk coming up soon. I suggest you see the movie as soon as possible. Your voicemails are up next. You've reached the Benjamin Dixon Show voicemail. Speak up and say what's on your mind.
Hey, Ben, this is Orion Khan. It's funny because I've been saying exactly what you have for years, that the NRA goes to the extreme that everyone should have a gun. So I've always said, let's say that, they say we want to take everyone's guns, let's take them. And every single time I brought it up, everyone I knew who was left gave me this evil look and said, no, that's too far. The problem is the NRA, their power isn't just in the money they give. The power is in their base. Every time any legislation anywhere in the country on the local, state, federal level is proposed, they send out emails and their base makes calls and they send letters and they pressure their politicians. So every single piece of gun legislation dies. We need that same power. We need to be able to counteract them. So anytime there's any gun legislation, they get an equal number of calls of people saying, yes, get rid of all the guns. It's not a bad idea. It's really the only way to go. We have to fight fire with fire. Thanks for a great show, Ben.
Thanks so much for the call, Ryan. Yeah, I get the same thing every time I mention let's go to the extreme on gun control, because we're dealing with an extremist organization in the NRA that wants every man, woman, boy, and girl and embryo to own a weapon. I get it from leftists and progressives who looked at me like, oh no, Ben, that's just a little bit too far there, guy. And I'm like, really? You know what? That's why we're going to always lose on this issue. And thankfully, these kids, they are not saddled with all of the propaganda that has seeped into every corner of of the discourse around this conversation. They don't have anything to lose, and they're like, you know what? Take all the guns. Well, they're really just saying ban assault rifles, and that's a nice first step, and we should support them on that 100%. But we need an organization with as much organizing power, with as much money to say every single gun off of the street. You know why? Because we're dealing with an unreasonable organization. And when we're dealing with unreasonable people, we cannot try to be reasonable. You cannot be reasonable at unreasonable times. You cannot negotiate with terrorists. And the NRA is a terrorist organization that uses intimidation to get their political agenda across to maximize the profits of gun manufacturers. And we cannot negotiate with them. We have to defeat them. All right, next voicemail.
Hello, my name is Antoine Gordon. I live in Dayton, Ohio. And I just want to say to these people who say, we can't take guns away because what about the criminals? My comment is this. Everyone is an innocent person until they become a criminal. And no one is saying take everyone's guns away. Everyone is just saying we need a national registration. And there is no reason any citizen needs to walk down the street with an AR-14 or an AK-47 or any kind of rifle. I should not have to go to a restaurant and see the person sitting next to me with a gun, with a rifle. We're not in the Wild Wild West. Thank you.
Thanks for the call. I'm saying take everyone's guns away. That's where I am now. Everything else you said, I agree with, right? That I love the logic of it, right? No one is a criminal until they become a criminal. So it's, that using that as an excuse, as to why they can't get guns, or using that as an excuse as to why we shouldn't, make any progress on gun control. That's a non-starter. Because everyone is innocent until they become a criminal. I love that point. I'm going to incorporate that into what I say about guns. But I am now calling for all guns to be every single gun, pellet guns. No guns allowed in this country. You know why? Because we're dealing. Do I have to repeat it? Say it with me. The NRA is a terrorist organization. They are extremist, and we need a countervailing extreme. One more voicemail.
Hi, my name is Norman. I'm calling from Chester, Pennsylvania. I've been listening to your show for a little while, but I think that as people, we get sidetracked and focus on so many other things. I was looking at this whole Black Panther movement thing, and yes, it's great to see, a black superhero. I get that. But all the money raised, that people were the Black Panther challenge, and they raised all this money for young black youth to go see this movie. Again, we're missing the point. That movie is made by the Disney company. Now, I don't know how many or what you know about the Disney company, but they're not the greatest company to be giving them all this money. I get that you want black actors to work. I get that. But raising all that money, think if we put that money into our school systems, because obviously this regime that's in control is not going to allow us to do that.
Okay, so a couple of things here. Yeah, I do know plenty about the Disney company, and, it is what it is. That's what I'm going to say about that. They brought us a fantastic movie. They made $300 million over the weekend. They put money into the hands of Ryan Coogler, who I'm excited about his work. I've always been excited about his work. That is the nature of monopolistic capitalism. And we can't expect, we're not going to change that with one movie. That's number one. Number two, it's not our responsibility above our taxation to raise money for our schools. I see what you're getting at, how much we could have done with all these things, but with the money that was spent on Black Panther this weekend. But you know what? What about, why is it whenever we have something black people in particular, we're like, oh, we could have started a school with that money. Yeah, we could have, but it's a movie, and we didn't try to start a school with Iron Man money. We expect black people to carry the burden of everything. Like, we pay taxes in this country. We need to get into the political system and fight back against a system that is draining our schools, that is doing everything it possibly can to ruin the public school system. That's how we fight that. We're already putting money there. That's what I'm saying. We already put our money there. Why should we have to take the little bit of money, our little $12, a little $16 that we're going to go watch a movie for escapism for a few minutes? And not only was it escapism, but it was the movie Black Panther was something that was motivating. So I disagree in the sense that we have to take it upon ourselves to every time there's a black movie or anytime there's something black, it has to be the type of black that other people approve of. And what I mean by that is that you always have a group of black people who say, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing this. Nah, bro, I'm going to do exactly what I want to do with my money. I want to go see Panther. I'm going to see it about 10 more times, to be quite honest with you. I'm going to get it on Blu-ray, DVD. Yes, I'm putting more money in the Disney company. You know who else I'm putting money in? Comcast, because I'm getting ready to upload this podcast through Comcast. All right, folks, that's all the time I have for you today. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Go to patreon.com. What are you waiting on? What are you waiting on? Become a patron today. $3 a month, $5 a month. Support the Benjamin Dixon Show. I will see you tomorrow.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.